Hello guys, welcome back to Dharma Geosphere. I'll be continuing with the analysis of Geography Optional Paper 1 from where I left a day back. Sorry I couldn't catch up with you all yesterday because of the cricket match, which I thoroughly enjoyed. So guys, I'll now discuss the remaining questions from section B. So the first question was analyze India's food security in the context of population growth. As I have been telling you during the classes and also during the discussion about the question paper, many of the questions have actually come from the policy papers, the UN papers, the UN reports, etc. And this time also 2021, 2022, please be a little more careful in picking up those policy papers and reading it so that you can give a well-rounded and a very powerful answers and get better marks and a very good rank. So analyze India's food security in the context of population growth. It's very simple. United Nations Population Fund had released a report. So as you all know, food production depends on croplands and water supply, which are under strain as the human populations are increasing. There has been the population growth. Pressure on limited land resources, driven in part by population growth, can mean expansion of cropland. This often involves destruction of vital forest resources, or could also be overexploitation of the arable land. So there are two factors. One is the population explosion, and the other is the unequal distribution of food resources. This is what needed to be highlighted, and you can put in this graph where you can see the world and where the Asia and India are. So that should give you a well balanced answer, and then you can give an example of the pressure of population making say one time very beneficial practice of shifting cultivation. So as more people require more food and more land, the practice of leaving land fallow long enough to recover is no more practicable, thus rendering shifting cultivation more harmful than useful. So then there was a study of NCAER which suggests that 80% of India's rural population and 70% of urban population thrive on less than recommended level of calories. That is also an aspect regarding the nutrition. That is another impact. So we move on to second question. This was an expected question because energy crisis didn't come for a couple of years. So very straightforward question. Some of the questions have asked for effects. So you please should not confuse between effects and causes. Okay. So here the energy, you should define what energy crisis is. Basically it stems from foreseeable end of a cycle of oil, gas and oil, which in addition have been producing a considerable increase in greenhouse gases. So that is the crisis part. And then causes are obviously the overconsumption, overpopulation, a lot of wastage of energy, particularly in the rural urban fringe sectors, and then of course the aging infrastructure. We keep on using some very old machinery, thereby reducing the efficiency of the development of energy resources. And then the effects. So first is the environmental crisis. This you all know how the carbon dioxide has been increasing, leading to global warming and climate change, and leading to environmental crisis. And then when it comes to economic and socio-political, you can say that energy shortages and resulting economic factors create a lot of socio-political issues. Particularly the energy transition should be done to the renewable energy resources, then energy efficiency and conservation, make gas line only cars illegal. This is a kind of an innovative step which some countries have adopted, even India can. And then you should revolutionize the waste and waste recycling. A lot of thought is going on this, but in concerted efforts involving the people, public private partnership should happen so that the actually waste can be revolutionized. and choose renewable resources and review energy consumption. Yes, we should review the energy consumption. Why some state is using so much more than the other state? Is it because the other state is using it more efficiently, or is it because one of the states is wasting a lot of energy? So this kind of analysis are very important. So these are the possible suggestions to address the issue of energy crisis. As I said, this is straight from the UN report, which is part of the thematic think pieces which keep coming up in the UN. So the C question is about mobility and migration. What are the causes and consequences of rural to urban migration in India? So this is there's been a thematic think piece from the United Nations, which talks about the migration and human mobility. You can quote from here. What is mobility, which refers to transitory movements of people in the course of everyday lives, whereas migration refers to permanent change of residence from one location to another by an individual, could be group or families. So you can draw a map in search of work, how people migrate out from rural to urban, and then describe what are the key source states from where the population moves from one place to the other and where they go, that is the destination states. And then you can give what are the main reasons. One is the marriage, the other is employment related, the third is new or subsectors like construction, domestic work. It could be a new quarry or a new mine, and then it could be rates of the urbanization, it could be the wages differences. So all these are the reasons how the population migrates from rural to urban. And then there is positive and negative impact of migration. You state various positive impacts like labor demand and supply, economic remittances, skill development, quality of life, social remittances, food and nutrition security, demographic advantage, and including adaptive mechanism for climate change. So all these are positive impacts for the migration from rural to urban. And then there are negative impacts, which includes the changing of the demographic profile, and it could be a political inclusion, and then it could be illiterate and underskilled migrants, they lose jobs, then there could be psychological abuse and gender violence, and then there is increased slum, and then leading to lack of sanitation and also brain drain, etc. So where economic growth is sustained over long time periods, its incidence works towards a progressive integration of space economy elucidity. This is a quote from John Friedman in his four-tiered core periphery model, which we discussed, but you should give some example. You can write this. This is the four core model. Show all the four regions here like this. And then also this diagram, and then give an example of Brazil, which is the core, and it had a golden triangle, trade triangle, and Amazon its periphery. Similarly, Sao Paulo, which developed because of the coffee industry, and then Rio de Janeiro also developed because of port and big imports and exports. Write short notes on relevance of wanton in agricultural location. So basically, the wanton agricultural model was so flexible that it could be modified to fit any local circumstances, particularly in developing countries, those that rely more on manufacturing and technology. Its value lies as an example of a very cost-efficient ideal model. The model lends itself well to modification, particularly in the developing countries, including that of India. It is directly relevant today primarily for theoretical aspects that draw a direct connection between distance from market and profitability of the product. So that is the basic concept in locating agricultural industries. So it is very, very relevant. These make just write these 4 points, and that is done. Then compare and contrast the Malthusian and neo-Malthusian perspective in the context of population growth, resource use and environment impact. Here you simply say that the Neo-Malthusian includes the support of use of contraception, as well as it addresses environmental degradation, etc. But here you have to draw this flow chart to show how the Neo-Malthusian is addressing the decreased fertility on one hand, the environmental degradation on the one hand. Just show this flow charts, and then also show about the resources, how it is showing its impact on resources by just drawing like this. So land degradation is a threat to productivity and sustainable resource management. Give examples from India. So you write what land degradation is, as I have been discussing with you all. Land degradation has become one of the major issues as far as India is concerned, and wherever land degradation occurs in dry land areas, which constitute nearly 40% of India's land, that is all areas of desertification. So India's land is continuously undergoing degradation and desertification. And then you can say that 90% of the states experienced a rise, particularly Delhi, wherein then the degradation has been noticed. And then you can take an example of how directly it affects. The cost of land degradation can be substantial for India, because particularly India is an agriculturally dominant country and the large contributor of GDP. So if it affects the agricultural productivity, it can weigh heavily on the economy. So you can show this is very important. How much of land declared is very small, whereas severity level deteriorated and the land lost is a lot of it. So you can see the entire red is what is degraded land. Coming to the next question, in the modern world, most of the frontiers have been replaced by boundaries. Frontier is an area, whereas boundary is a line. So earlier frontiers have been getting converted into boundaries naturally because of geopolitical reasons, for the purpose of political stability, and also for the ease to develop their own trade and commerce and have a political stability. So you can give some examples of where some frontiers and some boundaries, like so a line separating two sovereign states is called boundary, 38th parallel separating North Korea and South Korea, and you have 49th parallel USA and Canada, whereas area beyond boundary, as I've said, which is an area, is called as a frontier. You have the Himalayan frontier, you have the LOC, you have the McMahon line. All these are frontiers, and an attempt is being made to convert these into boundaries so that there is both political stability and also a kind of peace that is maintained, because there have been frequent tussles based on these frontier lines. So frontier is an integrating factor between states on either side, and boundary is a separating factor. So you can write recent examples of where frontiers have been converted into boundaries. One is the Gaza Strip, which you have been hearing in the news. So Israel and West Bank frontier, and there's an attempt to convert into boundary to bring in peace. Then India, China, you all know about that, and the border between US and Canada is another example where, for a non-political reason, for reason of simple geography, they had separated. Even for simple geography, within the USA also a frontier has been converted, where in front frontier has moved towards the west to the from the desert to the coastlines, and then basically to have stable internal structures. Frontiers are converted into boundaries, and you give these 5-6 examples. That's it. So discuss the concept of urban resilience in the context of planning for sustainable development with reference to towns and cities. This is another straightforward question, a policy perspective, a policy paper has come, wherein government has asked TERI and the NITI Aayog and all to understand the urban resilience of various cities. So these papers I'm sure you may have read. I had circulated this, I remember very well. So if you have read this, you can clearly state what urban resilience is. It's a degree to which cities are able to tolerate alteration before reorganizing around a new set of structures and processes. So urban resilience poses a major challenge in cities. You can write about some of the cities which have been facing the challenge of the rapid population growth and maintaining urban sustainability, etc. So given the nature of interlinkages within an urban environment and consequently highly connected nature of risk, policies relating to urban cities resilience must adopt a multi-sector and multi-dimensional approach, particularly with reference to land use planning, energy management, housing and water, health services, etc. So this is another important and unexpected question. You analyze the dynamics of industrial location in the metropolitan city. So the two main dynamics of the industrial location over the years have been, one has been the period of liberalization. So how, what were the factors for industrial location before liberalization, that is of license, removing of licensing, etc., and after liberalization, and then you see the employability rates, how they have differed and have influenced the location of industries. So the first state the virtuous cycle principle, which states that new industries locate where other industries already exist because of the advantage of agglomeration. All the facilities are available, but evidence from India and many studies have shown that the benefits in large cities outweigh the costs of congestion, higher wages and land prices. So Mumbai, Chennai and Kolkata, they are considered to be the most diversified cities which specialize not only in resource-based industries but also in capital and demand-oriented consumer goods industries. Whereas Punjab, Madhya Pradesh, UP, they are less middle diversified, and Assam, Jammu and Kashmir, Kerala and Orissa are least diversified. So these two, middle or diversified and less diversified, they only specialized in capital and demand-oriented consumer good industries. So this is how the dynamics of location of various industries happen. But after liberalization, share of Calcutta and Mumbai has declined significantly, while that of Hyderabad and Chennai has increased rapidly. Another dynamic of understanding the industrial location is the manufacturing and employment. If you take a case of Mumbai and Thane, which are just about 30 kilometers apart, in the last 2 decades, total manufacturing employment declined drastically in Greater Mumbai and rose to almost more than 34% in Thane, showing that there has been a metropolitan decentralization in location of various industries because of the various dynamics that work. It could be increase in wages, or it could be better living conditions or better employment opportunities. Write an essay on gender equity and equality. So again, there has been a report of the UN on equity and equality. Basically, once you have the gender equity, it leads to gender equality. And then you can talk about how it is intrinsically related to the Human Development Index and is vital to realization of human rights for both men and women. So within the context of balanced human development, you can mention one important point, that is gender equality is critical because it will enable women and men to make decisions that impact more positively on their own sexual and reproductive health as well as that of their spouses and families. So this health angle is also important as a part of a balanced human development. Then discuss how and why Mackinder modified his concept of pivot area after the World Wars. We simply say Mackinder's later works support the thesis of Eastern Europe as a part of the heartland. So all that you have to do is simply draw this map, show what was Mackinder's earlier pivot line and what is this new line, which includes the Black and Baltic states, and then you explain because of the geopolitical reasons and changing geopolitical scenario, Mackinder has changed his earlier pivot line. So this is about the world population transition in context of fertility decline and socio-economic development. Remember, this is about world, and this basically relates to the African countries where there has been a rapid decline in the fertility rates, and the reasons for that are simple. I'll show you, draw this demographic transition, show where there is a declining fertility rates and the socio-economic development within this, and then try to give examples of say Tanzania, where the major determinants of declining fertility included postponement of first marriage, marital disintegration through divorce or widowhood, and low remarriage rates which are associated with very low declining low levels of fertility. And then you can show some of the countries how the fertility rates have been decreasing and what were the reasons and the socio-economic reasons for the decrease of fertility rates. Then in the last, human ecology is the study of mutual relations of people. This is basically the definition of human ecology. So you can take two examples of the concepts of human ecology. One, the human adaptation. You can kind of show how the morphologically how humans adapted, and then you can also show how socially they have adapted, cultural mixing of races, etc. And then influence of man and ecology and environment could be another concept. You can show how man has been modifying the landforms. You can start about mining, overgrazing, shifting cultivation, land degradation, desertification, coastal erosion and all that, and atmosphere, the releasing of pollutants and the greenhouse gases reduction, and then the global warming leading to climate change. Now this is a very general, simple, fundamental question, but you would have to, I'm sure, handle that. It would have been better had you done a simple flow chart like this and explained it within this. So that's all, guys. I'm sure all of you have done quite well, and for those who are appearing in 2021 and 2022, these concepts are important. These reports and the policy papers which I have shown here are also important, and all of them have a repeat value. After all, where will they ask questions? They have to ask questions only from within this framework. So keep reading this. I'll share these handouts and policy papers and the thematic papers and all that with you, so that you are well informed and you are able to write very good answers. So guys, thanks a lot for all the support in the first video. I'm glad that 2021 students are also taking a lot of interest in this analysis, because these topics will have repeat value, whether it is prelims, mains or GS, geography portion or the geography optional. Okay guys, bye.